to democratize access to capital. She's actually speaking on 2 sessions, both on March 14th. First one is blockchain versus VC, democratizing access to capital. Second one is value and art in a tokenized world, again referring to blockchain and cryptocurrency, crypto ideas there. Again, one of the many outstanding female speakers in this track. Last speaker to review is this gentleman named Bradley Tusk. He released this book early in October called The Fixer. The title of the book is The Fixer. Yes, that sounds like Michael Cohen, and apparently Bradley Tusk actually grew up with Michael Cohen, so there is something there. He has a VC fund called Tusk Ventures, I believe. It works primarily and specifically with regulated industries, things such as Uber that work with government. You may have heard Tusk on a recent Recode Decode podcast with Kara Swisher. It was also the subject of a big story in the New Yorker about a month ago. He is particularly interesting in the context of what we've seen in the last 10 days. He is doing a session on this idea of using a blockchain system for voting, and if we did that, we could go to a system of voting where you could vote on your smartphone, which would be, interesting and pretty much a game changer in terms of turnout. Okay, 2 more things to talk about briefly in terms of blockchain content for 2019. We have an event called South by Southwest Pitch. This is what used to be called South by Southwest Accelerator. We changed the name this year. It is our competition for startups. We have 10 categories for 2019, including a blockchain category. If you are in a startup, if you're working with a startup, if you are advising a startup, know that the application deadline for South by Southwest Pitch is end of day, 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, November 15th. So get your startup into South by Southwest Pitch. For context here, since we started South by Southwest Pitch in 2009, the finalists have raised a total of $5 billion in funding. That didn't all come from South by Southwest, but that indicates the level of quality that we have in this competition. More information on there, southbysouthwest.com/pitch. After South by Southwest Pitch closes, we have an event, or after the application process closes, we have an event called South by Southwest Release It. This is for companies, more established companies, as well as startups who are doing releases in the March 2019 timeframe, i.e. in and around South by Southwest. That entry process will begin next week. That entry deadline is mid-January. You can find more information about that at southbysouthwest.com/awards /southbysouthwest-release-it, or just search Release It on the South by Southwest site. We have a big South by Southwest announcement on Tuesday, November 27th. More blockchain speakers announced then. You will save $300 if you purchase your badge for South by Southwest by the end of the day on Thursday, December 7th. There are discounts for students, discounts for groups. If you're a member of Capital Factory, you get a discount also. Or put your name in the hat over there and you are eligible to win a free badge tonight. It will be part of the drawing later where one person will win a drone and another person will win a free badge for South by Southwest. Again, you can always email me for more South by Southwest information at hugh@sxsw.com. And thank you so much. I will yield the floor to much better presenters tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
No, you guys all signed up, right? So you got to take it when you signed up. So,
Oh, really?
yes, yes.
You all set? Yeah. Sweet, got your little IoT going.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like that.
simple circuit.
All right. All right, folks. From TIPCO, Principal Solutions Architect, right?
Yes.
Yiming Xu.
Yep.
Take it away.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us talking about blockchain in manufacturing. I have worked with TIPCO software for about 12 years, and most of my time actually working on the field, helping customers develop business solutions using TIPCO technology. Those are spanning from messaging, complex event processing, and data visualization, and cloud deployment. So all those things. I actually got interested in blockchain about mid of last year. So I'm actually, compared to Mark, is very, very junior in this field. So yeah, since you guys started, this group started 2015, you just said, right? So it's more than 3 years ago. So you guys are actually the cutting edge person. So hopefully this talk, I'm going to present things that what TIPCO is doing, right? So, and why we are in the blockchain field. Hopefully, we'll learn mutual learning experience. So if I have saying anything that's very bad or it's not accurate, you can correct me. So first, what TIPCO does, right? So TIPCO produces a suite of.
Don't say Bitcoin.
Yeah, you see these. That's a thing, right? So that's basically as a cloud, right? We call it a connected intelligence cloud. So TIPCO provides a suite of products that helping business, organizations to first of all, underneath, on the bottom side, is connecting all the data sources together. Right? So we do the application integrations. So we first provide the messaging and the complex event processing and business process automations, and also have B2B connections. So you basically connect all the data together, provide web services, and expose microservices through the API management. But once you get all those data together, and on the top one is basically the brain, the real brain, how these decision makers would get information from your data, make decisions, right? To help the decision makers make decisions, that's why you need data visualization tools, and you need advanced analytics to analyze the data, show the dashboard to the whoever wants to make a decision, so it's easier for them to make decisions, right? So that's the two part of the connected intelligence. All these components right now, they are cloud enabled, so you can deploy these application components into the cloud, or you can host it in on-premise as well. So with blockchain, as Mark just said, it's kind of a natural extension. That's why TIPCO is more interested in the blockchain-related applications. But we view the blockchain not only on the blockchain, we view it as from the application perspective. What are the other components you will need to use the blockchain technology? So here, next slides, there's 3 things that business wants to achieve when we use blockchain for business, right? So first is, nowadays, all these corporations, supply chain, manufacturing, people, they are highly connected. So the other day when we talk about, there's a major manufacturer who's doing, so they are, you probably heard about this consortium called INEMI, International Electronic Manufacturing Initiatives. So this is a big consortium of all these electronics manufacturers. They come together, publish these electronic manufacturing roadmaps once every year. So this manufacturer talk to us, try to us, say, okay, our goal is try to integrate all these verticals, the electronics manufacturing verticals together. So the slogan is from sand to iPhone. So it's basically from the raw material starting and going through all these different components and steps and the component testing and manufacturing fabs, right? So if we really can connect all these people together, the suppliers and the manufacturers together, that's a lot of people, a lot of organizations, right? So the highly connected world, blockchain would play a big role in that. And also, when you use blockchain, is basically another goal manufacturers want to achieve is automate the business process, right? So a lot of things, you can be automated, and say like, if a manufacturer uses a machine or equipment, doing manufacturing, going through the manufacturing process, they may need scheduled maintenance, right? When would this equipment need to be maintained? Right? You don't want to skip a maintenance so it breaks down, then it stops your process. That would be very bad for a manufacturer. So if you can automate those processes, you have automatic monitoring on this equipment, and if it's required maintenance or required some service, and it automatically triggers events out for the service provider so they can come do the maintenance before it breaks down. And another goal for the business is the data integrity.
Interject one point on that.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that important? Because some people would say, well, gee, we already do that, so it's like, well, he's not saying anything new, boss. It's like, no, you missed it in the blockchain, because the cases in the normal place of the world, everything runs fine. Blockchain catches really the other side of it. It's there to protect you, right? So that's what we're finding now. So in the case of what we're talking about here is the integrity of those signals, right? Think about the grid, the integrity of those signals. Is it a real signal or is it a false signal? It's going to be important to know that, whether or not we're going to open up the dam or not, or we're going to crank up a second turbine or not, or let a jet go down the runway or not.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Yeah,
it's
expressed much
about
better.
not just capturing the signal, but it's about having that immutable ledger that's shared across the network in real time. So that when those sensors pick a signal up, there's other sensors that are looking at that and judging it. So you have AI running that says, oops, oh, that sensor, oh, I think it's gone flaky on its guys, so don't include that sensor. Right?
Yep. So that's how you get, why you have these smart contracts on the blockchain. So
that's my whole point.
Right.
The financial hit on that. SLA agreements, because if I want to wreck my turbine, right, because I want to collect a $2 million insurance policy, because I know my big supplier just canceled our order, he's going to cancel it, which means we ain't going to have a business, so I'm going to cash out. Knowing what transpires up and along that course up to those events, think about it. Do you think an insurance company would be interested in knowing that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why the next point is also that, right? So you have tamper-free, right? Tamper-resistant data. So when the blockchain is append only, right? So you write the data in there, and it's not changeable. So you know that you guarantee that's the thing that's the real truth, system of the truth. So there are a lot of business uses of blockchain. So this is just a list all these places people are thinking about. And I guess this is not that strange to you. And Hugh just listed all those use cases, right, about blockchain that people are trying to do. So this lists a lot of things, spans to product provenance, consumer contracts, healthcare, claim processing, right, IoT. That's a big thing for the manufacturers, the IoT integration. Government for the voting. I think one of the lists on the Hugh's list is about a voting system, and a lot more. From the manufacturing perspective, and when we talk about to these manufacturing people, so all these areas of manufacturing process could be getting impacted by the blockchain technology, and making they call it a smart manufacturing process, right? So making that smart process smarter. So you can see it spans, sales and marketing, that's obvious. If you want to do the sales marketing, you need those data. That's actually from the whole industry. Supply chain, of course, that's obvious, right? You have suppliers and the manufacturers, and they all connect together. Manufacturing and product quality, field services, these are related to the IoT integration. And research development, if you want to share your IP, and when you have collaborative design of product and manufacturer, the blockchain would be very big using there. So it's more like you have, I invented IP, right? Maybe I'm the original inventor. How people will say, okay, you are the original inventor. Many people collaborated, right? But if you are on the blockchain, you have your invention, you put on the blockchain, you share, or you can sell your IP to other people, or you can have collaborative other people to join you, then you can know which idea is originated from where, right? So blockchain captures those. Regulatory compliances, those are mostly like pharmaceutical, people making medicines. There are a lot of regulations, you have to follow. And when the regulators come here to audit your process, how can you prove that we followed all the process, right? Blockchain captures those steps on there, so it makes the auditor very easy to audit the data. Dashboard reports, these are another area of blockchain. It's basically, it's not putting the data into the blockchain. It's once the data is on the blockchain, how can you extract information from it and make decision makers easier to make the decision, right? So you basically need a repository to monitor, to get the data from the blockchain and do AI or data analytics on that and make a higher level presentation of the data that's captured on the blockchain. Right? So all these areas could be impacted. So today, I think since you are all blockchain veteran, so I'm going to skip that very quickly. So these are some core concepts about what's distributed ledger, and I think you all know. What are the consensus? Why consensus is so important in blockchain? Permissioned, because we are dealing with, we are more concentrated, more interested in blockchain use for business. So we think that permission data blockchain is more important for business. Oracle, what is Oracle? Why Oracle is needed for a blockchain application. Zero knowledge proof, why that's important for privacy.
That's not Oracle database, right?
That's right. Well, I first looked at Oracle database, how did that come
It's
in?
the Greek Oracle.
Yeah, I have one slide on there, and then you can get to that. Rule of consensus. Right now, when we talk about consensus.
And you glossed over zero knowledge proofs, and that is something that's coming into vogue very strong, right, and very fast in the blockchain world in Hyperledger. Just to touch on that, they hold tremendous power. They're basically black boxes. So they're things that you can put identifying information into, and then you can have strangers. You can hook up with a stranger and do a transaction and prove the parties and the transaction by querying the black box. That's the zero knowledge piece, and get the proof you need, as though, for instance, in the future with zero knowledge, you could walk into a bar, show them the scan, right? The bartender doesn't have to see your ID, just scan it, and what he's going to get back is a zero knowledge, the result of zero knowledge proof that says that individual's over 21.
Yeah.
Without having to give out any of the identifying information. And it's the magic of the cryptography and the mathematics that allows it to basically encrypt the data and then run the queries on that data in such a manner that the probability equation that proves to you that what you're asking it is truthful. This is really groundbreaking. It's a problem right now because of speed, so you don't see it in production, but the effort is really going there, and it will get conversions with hardware, with Intel and others, so it will be in the chip, and in the firmware, right, on sensors, right, and it'll be a whole new thing because it's a way of one step to where all of us will own our data, our identity, and the data, and we'll just have to show a key, and that's it. And then anything off of that key we can prove, like are you an American citizen? Boom, prove. Are you a Texas resident? Boom, prove. Do you have a valid driver's license? Boom, boom. What state? Texas. Boom, wrong.
Yeah, that's a very interesting technology. It's already used, say, by quite a few products, even for the Hyperledger fabric, right? So they use zero knowledge proof for your identity. So you don't really have to expose all your identity,
Right.
all your attributes.
Right, it's actually becoming a world standard for verified, I know it's wrong, but verified identity, I know it's got it wrong, but it's basically, verified credentials. Okay, so it's a W3C worldwide international standard they're developing that will effectively give us the ability, as a limited use case, or what I just said, concentrate it down to where it's effective for production use, or where we'll have this verified credential. And that's really what it says. I mean, and it'll be universal, so it'll be groundbreaking.
Yeah. It's good to
You
know.
won't have to log on to websites and all that crap anymore. Good.
Yeah,
And
right.
you won't get hacked like that either. No one will impersonate you unless you
Exactly,
give up your
yeah.
key.
Yeah. So there's no identity theft because you control your identity, right? The only thing
Everybody's got your identity today.
yourself. The only thing you expose is some queries that you let people to query. Yeah. So.
No one will be able to impersonate you.
So right now, if you go to a shop to buy a liquor or buy a beer, you have to show your driver's license. That contains all your identities, right? Your social security number. That's bad, right?
And it could be fake.
Yeah. But if you have zero knowledge, you say, okay, you only need to ask me if I'm over 21, right? Yeah.
It's not utopia, right? You can still be hacked, right? Because garbage in, garbage out, right? So, I mean, it's not, 2100. Yeah, it's not.
Right. Yeah.
How far out do you think that is?
The things that I just talked about, the verified credentials are probably within 18 months. And actual release of zero knowledge proofs within Hyperledger is probably about, I would say, 2 releases away, so it's probably 12, 18 months again.
Yeah, this field is growing fast. So the last part will be, in this talk, it'll be...
There's already some companies, not here, that are over in Europe that haven't done due diligence, but are already operating with this in silicone, and they're doing financial, like credit cards. But it's like a master, it's like a wallet, it's a wallet effectively, right? It's a wallet, right? But it's a credit card, but it's based on this identity, but it's third party, so you don't know if it's real or not. But it's being used, and it's in a financial system with a financial backing of a country, but again, the country's suspect too.
Thanks for the explanation. So that's good. Let me see. Quickly go through these slides already.
One other point on that, Ron,
You
since
got
you guys
okay.
are all data, is, and you might want to add this to it,
Okay.
is post-quantum cryptography, because that effectively, it does affect blockchain, because it breaks the public key encryption that's being used in blockchain today. And it also affects all the key sizes, all the hashing, etc. Doesn't break everything, but it certainly sets up a scenario that you don't want to be a victim of. And that is like any day now could be a black swan.
Quantum computing.
Post-quantum, don't confuse it. Post-quantum cryptography.
Oh, okay.
It means that it's post-quantum, right?
So
I mean, it's a name. But effectively it means the day that you do get quantum is the day that all the algorithms, instead of going linear like this, which is what we have today. Our whole world works like this, right? Everything's like this. That's all you get today. That's the best you get. Okay? But quantum says, no, tomorrow we're going to do this. That's exponential. Right? That's what scares the hell out of linear, because while you're trying to crack something, and today brute force is like this, well, brute force tomorrow is like this. So whatever your protection is here, key space-wise, gets crunched in a second. It can look at it like that. So that's why it breaks it, because it's a search. It means that instead of taking an hour to search something, it's a millisecond to search the same space. And cryptography is all about searching a big space for a little needle in a haystack.
So is that a whole different algorithm to do the encryption?
Short algorithm.
For the, okay.
Right. But there has recently here in Austin, there was an 18-year-old this summer. Check this out. A genius, math genius at UT, did his PhD paper, and he did a breakthrough because he wrote a classical algorithm to defeat a proof, a quantum proof, that said no classical algorithm will ever match or come close to a quantum algorithm. And him and his professor said, well, we're going to challenge that. Right? So he wrote a classical algorithm that performed almost just as good as the quantum counterpart, which effectively blew away that proof in theorem, which sort of unsettles the quantum ground, because the whole quantum premise is that no classical algorithm will ever compete.
That's scary.
But that's just the space that we're in, because the blockchain is based on that, folks. And when our whole lives run on it, you see what I'm saying?
Wait until quantum computing is coming.
You don't want your enemy. Tomorrow is not, you don't conquer your enemy tomorrow with bombs. You conquer them with bits. And if you can corrupt and take over their financial flows, you can numb a country.
Yeah. All right. So this one, I guess everybody knows. Blockchain may be sort of a distributed data management platform, where the data may be shared across distributed network and securely, and with business logic. When we say with business logic, it's basically you have the smart contract that deployed on the network. So these 4 blocks are the keys about a blockchain, why blockchain is useful. Now, the first one is distributed system of record. Right? So when we, in today's world, every business you go to, right, when we do the consulting, or you work for an IT shop, business want a system of record. What is system of record, right? So that's a single platform of truth. So it's a data that you believe it's a truth about truthful data of business for the business. And how can you say that's a system of record? Well, the data has to be very secure, and people want to cross-site replications, because that's system data. If you lose it, we lose all the business truths, right? And think about when I go to a customer site, some bigger customers, and they are still struggle with one single company. I want to keep my data secure. I have to have 2 data centers. I want the data from here to there. Even for that, that's pretty difficult for a company. And for blockchain, it's actually distributed across multiple companies, right? Multiple nodes. So, and this has become an infrastructure of the blockchain. It's already handled for you. So that's why it's so useful. The embedded business logic is that you can actually add your data validations and business processing calculations onto the blockchain, right? So you write your, you start your network, and you deploy your smart contract onto the blockchain, which is basically getting independently executed on all nodes, right? So that's how each individual nodes execute the same code. So you cannot really fake it, right? And security, verifiability, and provenance, because of the way that blockchain is constructed, so that guarantees all those. And consensus, consensus of course comes in as a distributed application. So if you have many, many nodes that connect to the same network, and they are actually executing independently, how can you guarantee that everybody actually writes the exact same data to their disk, to the storage? Right? That's why you need a way to do the consensus. You know, everybody agrees with the set of data, then we write it down, right? So I actually have a few slides about consensus.
Is this good with big data, or is it too slow?
Well, right now it's pretty slow, right? So that's why the real big data, the blockchain probably couldn't handle.
So it's more application
Yeah.
based.
Yeah.
When you say big data, what are you talking like
Data.
MapReduce or something, or searching big data, or like warehousing, or?
Yeah.
Well, you can use blockchain with it's a hybrid solution. I mean, the data, it's a use case that you're looking at, right? So if you're trying to say, can the blockchain handle the same kind of volume of data? I'm telling you, yes. Eurenium's right about today, right, with what you see out there, okay? But I'm building systems that are going to handle 2 million people online transacting, I don't know what.
Yeah, but 2 billion a second is what I'm talking about, transactions.
Yeah, and that's a use case. You know, I
Right.
mean, again, we'd have to look at that and break it down to, I mean, is it streaming, is it what? I mean, is it batch, is it,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And then like, what's it for? What are you trying to capture? What are you trying to use it for, right?
Yeah. There are some design consideration you have to go into it. Yeah.
But I'm going to dispute the norm, okay, because of what I see in the future, and I see blockchain in big data. Especially in what I'm using now as a peripheral in AI, right? To me, right now, my AI and like you see it in the media today now, they're trying to catch on to it. Will AI and blockchain become one, right? Dude, 2015, I told you that, right? So it's like cognitive. So the blockchain and AI go together. So in the sense that the data that moves through the blockchain, right, and the blockchain itself, because it grows, can become in and of itself whole big data, right? Terabytes, right? But it's linear, like that sense, but you can also dimensionalize it. They're not doing that today, but there are permissionless now, because these guys live on the wild side, right? So they're trying to go through the world. They're creating an algorithm to show us capabilities that we don't have to have linear blockchains, we can have lattice-type layered blockchains, which will get to where you're going. So the day will come when you can literally dump in Amazon a petabyte, boom, on a blockchain.
All right. Okay. Permission and permissionless, I think everybody knows it. So let me just skip that. Smart contract, we already talked about it. It basically represents a way to introduce business logic into the blockchain. Oracle, we haven't got to the details of Oracle, right? So Oracle is basically an entity that provides you the truthful data, but that's not on the blockchain, right? So when you deploy your smart contract onto the blockchain that executes on the blockchain nodes, if they want some data from outside of the world, that's when you introduce Oracle. So say like you want a temperature of today's temperature, right? And where do you get the data? It's not part of a blockchain, but you can get from your trustful data source. That's Oracle. And zero knowledge, Mark has already explained it. So let me skip that.
Excuse me, can you explain zero knowledge? Zero, I don't know what it is.
Zero knowledge.
I want you to explain.
Yeah. Zero knowledge proof is to address a problem associated with confidentiality. So, say, in the permissionless world, right, everybody is anonymous, so you don't really have the identity issue. Okay? But with permission, the database for business, when you have identity, you have to pre-register, so you know exactly who you are. But when you have a lot of people joining the same network, right, you may not want to expose your identities to everybody. So you cannot put the identity itself onto the blockchain. Otherwise, everybody will know, okay, you are doing business with the other guy, right? So say like the Fabric actually uses technology just to hide it. So what you see is just a hash. So this algorithm for the zero knowledge proof is actually based on the cryptography. So in other words, we just made the example about you have identity, your driver's license is identity, right? That has all the details about yourself. But with zero knowledge proof technology, you don't have to expose everything to everybody. You can only allow people to ask the question about your identity, not the details of your identity. Okay?
So does that mean then you encrypt your identity, or you don't give your identity?
You don't give all your attributes or your identity out. So you actually own all your own identity. All your attributes, and it's your attribute or your relationship with other identities. All those information you are the only owner. Only one.
There's a classic puzzle that explains this that you see, and it's about 2 rooms and like a door in the back, and there's like 2 doors, and it's between 2 people. So it's like there's already an exchange of knowledge. So the whole thing is about proving that you know what I already know. So inside this room, one of those rooms, there's a black box. You say you have the key. I know what's in that black box. So I'm going to tell you, go to box 32 and tell me what's in there. And then if you're the right one, you'll go in, you'll find box 32, and you'll say, A. I won't just go with that because it could be a guess. I'll say, okay, go to box 6, and they'll go to box 6. Right? It might be on the other side of the room. Right? But the idea is that you ask them 1,000 questions, and if they answer 90% of them correctly, you have a very strong proof of probability that they are who they say they are.
It's a way to prove that you have knowledge without revealing the essence of that knowledge. And so like Mark said, if you have 2 people go to 2 different paths, and there's a solid door in between those 2 paths, and if the person can go through that door, and you're just waiting out here, and you don't know anything's going on at that door, at that path, or what key they have, or what they use to open that door, but you do know that they have the knowledge to open that door. So that's all you know is that knowledge, but you don't really know any of the methodology or any of the specifics about the knowledge. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Good explanation.
I
saw that example. I
Wrap
just
your
couldn't
head
explain
around.
it.
It's a hard one. It's hard, but it is. It's not. The thing to understand is that at the end of the day, again, I guess I'm poor, but it's a probability. It's not a light switch. It's not on or off. Okay, it's a probability. So that's so scary in a way. Our whole life would be built on that. It's a probability that's correct.
Yeah, interesting.
Today, mathematically, with our crypto, it's 1, meaning it's real. It's 100%.
Oh, yeah. That's another topic, right? So the details. Consensus, I guess. What is consensus, right? So in blockchain, of course, the consensus, we need a consensus is that, okay, I'm a node participating the network. I receive all these transactions coming in, right? And I collect enough transactions, I assemble that into block and write it out, right? But if everybody is doing the same thing, you may receive the transactions differently. And when you write a block may be different from other people, right? How can you guarantee that everybody writes the same content onto the same block onto the chain? So that's handled by, you have to have an algorithm to guarantee that. That's a consensus algorithm. So if you want to understand it, it's like a voting system. It's very, very similar to our political voting system. You know, just last week, I guess, we all go vote for someone to be a congressman or a senator, right? So we have a rule that if this guy got more than 50% of the vote, he's in office, right? He goes into the office. He will be staying in that office for a few years, right? So here is the same way. So you basically have a network voting for you. So one guy got a chance. Once you got a vote, you basically are qualified to assemble the next block. So everybody would use your block and dump it, right? So how can you do that? How can you vote for a person to do to assemble the next block? So there's that's why these kind of algorithms coming in, right? Proof of work is used by Bitcoin, and proof of stake going to be used by Ethereum, and proof of elapsed time is used by Sawtooth, right? So how these guys work, right? Like proof of work is basically just let you play a game, right? Everybody plays a game. So the game is that I choose a number, and I use that number with my block data to calculate a hash. If the hash is smaller than the threshold, that means I solved the puzzle. But you don't know, what number you pick, right? You basically just randomly choose a number, and if you're lucky, you got your hash code that's small, that's smaller than this criteria, then you solve the puzzle, right? If you are the first one to solve the puzzle, then you own the rights to write the block, right? So that's basically by chance. It's more like a lottery system, right? We have millions of people. One guy wins the lottery, and that guy wins the lottery. He got the rights to assemble a block, publish a block. Right?
That's the key word you just said, lottery. Because what's a true lottery?
Random.
Thank you. And that means that it's not what? Fixed. It's no collusion. It's pure. It's fair.
Yeah.
It's proportional to how many lotteries you get.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could go on and tell you how it's a fallacy, but.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So of course,
As long as there's a human involved, right? Chasing your tail.
Proof of stake is also kind of a lottery, right? So, but it's weighted by the stake. So if you're rich, you have a lot of coins. Of course, you got a bigger weight, longer, higher weight, and you got more chance to get picked up as voted as a lead. And proof of elapsed time, that's by random pick the random time sleep. So you have to wait that period before you get chosen.
Supposedly, there's a clock inside a secure element on a chip that's tamper-proof, that tick, 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 tick. And when you ask it, give me a number, it gives you its number. And across this ecosystem of all the nodes running, they're all going to be unique, i.e. a lottery. Because then what they do in their consensus model is, well, that's the smallest number. So if all of you pick the number out of the hat fairly, then you all have an equal chance. But whoever has the smallest number wins.
Yeah.
That's what that one is. Think of proof of stake as skin in the game. That's what that one is. If you've got skin in the game, you get to be a validator, and the theory is if you've got skin in the game, well, you're not about to cut your own throat.
Yeah.
Another way of looking at proof of stake is when it takes all, in the sense that I was always horrified when I did my MBA that every single time you did any economic simulation at all, 20 people around a table, some game, within 2 or 3 rounds, all the chips always ended in someone's lap. You couldn't tell who it was, but essentially, the way of stake ownership, you're echoed in society as well, but literally every economic game we ever played, it always ended up with somewhere at the end of the table, or it could be you. Actually owning all the chips. Essentially, the way it's like, we're stock market investors, it's like survivorship bias. There's one person who just knocks the skin off the ball, is infinitely wealthy, but was it chance that put them there, or skill? And most analysis shows it's mostly chance. So the problem with proof of stake is once once the snowball starts accumulating more and more, and so proof of work you can explain to your grandmother as to how it works, how it can be somewhat more equitable, but proportional to your compute resources and stuff like that. But I've read several papers on proof of stake, and I always walk away with a bad taste in my mouth because I just go back to my MBA, and it's like we played these games before when it ever came to ownership and money. Everybody, it always ends up that one person on the table is winner of everything.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So proof of stake, guys, got all those things out there that are trying to do it, those things are all gonna fail. Because just what this gentleman said, it will fail. And they only went to proof of stake because they realized that at scale, proof of work breaks too.
Resources and stuff like that.
Okay? In fact, as the price of Bitcoin goes down, the mining community dilutes, and it creates stronger and stronger pools, creating larger and larger percentages of a few. At some point, one guy is going to have 51%. And when it's all going downhill, they're going to make a decision. It's like, hey, let's just cash out. Since we're the miner, all it's going to take is one day we're going to drain all the wallets.
You don't even know who took it.
Right, so there's what, 100 on a day? I don't know, I don't remember, but, yeah.
51% attack.
Well, that's optimistic, because I have papers that show 23% can do it.
51% attack doesn't give you carte blanche to do anything you want with the blockchain.
No, that's true.
For example, it doesn't make people's private keys just automatically float to the surface.
Yeah.
What it means, you can actually spend coins that you owned in the past and stuff like
Well,
that.
it's even worse than that, because it's network.
But the point
So if I own the
point is
network,
you can't-
I control you, I don't care what you do or what you own, because I'm gonna route what I wanna route and put whatever I want on there.
No, but you could, that doesn't mean they could, it doesn't mean, for example, that they can take stuff out of your wallet because they don't have your private key.
Oh, no, they get what's coming through, is what I'm saying.
No, but the actual things that you can do with the 51% attack aren't carte blanche. There are certain restrictions on what you can and can't do in terms of changing the history, for example. Because
Yeah, not the history. What you end up doing is you just block the history and you run your own chain. And as long as you're 51, everyone believes you're the longest guy. You're always the longest guy, so the whole world's running on your chain.
the assumption always is
Right.
that you have complete amount of control over everything with blockchain.
Right.
But it's not as if having that compute power makes everyone's private keys float to the surface and they can roll the wallets and right away. In other words, the damage is bad, but it's not catastrophic in the sense it changes everything. You can change anything, anywhere.
Oh, yeah, and again, but it's network too. And people think that it's all ubiquitous. It's not.
But my point to you is that very quickly things like the miners could be identified, blacklists and whitelists created and stuff like that. You can fight back, have time. It's not as if in that 1 second after they get the 51%, everything.
Well, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about other rogue entities that I know that if I had the backing, I could go and do whatever I want to do. Because at the end of the day, it's all about a wire. So if I own the wire and control that wire, I can do whatever I want, right? So it's a moot issue. People are fooling themselves, right? I mean, a very smart man I had lunch with the other day really lightened me up because he said, you know what, America, you know what the difference with America, the only thing that makes America America? I said, what? He said, trust. He says, why do you put your money in the bank? Because of trust. But what does it mean? Is it really safe? Of course not. We've had incidents where, so it's a fallacy. We all make our own risk equations, and we all live in our own world of trust, right? And that is based upon experience, right? Circumstance and state of mind, right? So it is what it is. I mean, garbage in, garbage out. Blockchain's not a savior, right? It's like the system, it's not going to save the system if the system wants to collapse. It's that simple, right? It's not going to save your account if the CIA decides to play man in the middle, get AT&T and the NSA and change put a little box on your wire coming out of your house or on your pole or on your pop and just run wild with you.
That's right. people are fundamentally honest, right? So
Yeah,
that's what we
it's-
believe.
It really is.
Yeah, someone assembled this list, right? They have, I think they listed about 35 or 34 of different algorithms doing this consensus, right? So probably this is not complete. I at least know that it doesn't include the things Byzantine fault tolerant, right? Because it doesn't matter how these algorithms, names and different things. You have two big categories of consensus. One is a lottery system, just like we said, those three things, is part of the lottery system. Another type of a consensus is called Byzantine fault tolerant. Everybody knows, BFT. Yeah. So it's basically, for the Byzantine, it's different. You don't rely on lottery. You basically make different rounds. You hear this story about the Byzantine general, right? So the general has multiple divisions of army, and they're surrounding the city, and they want at least 60 or 2/3 of the units to attack the city so you can win. So, but the generals cannot talk to generals. They have to go send a messenger. So I send a messenger to another general, so I can know what that general wants to do. Does he want to attack or does he want to withdraw, right? So based on this system, everybody is autonomous, but you can messages. So you have to receive 2/3 of the messages say, okay, those 2/3 of generals decide to attack, then I attack. Right? Otherwise, I withdraw. So that's basically a Byzantine fault tolerant algorithm. So there are many variations about that. So with that algorithm, you will have to go through multiple rounds. The first round says, okay, I give you a block, randomly choose a leader. That guy sends a block out. And then if 2/3 of the people say, oh, I'm preparing, I'm preparing to commit this, to validate this block. If I get 2/3 of them and I validate the block is correct, then I send a message to everybody say, I plan to commit this block, right? Everybody does the same thing. So if you receive 2/3 of the commits from other guys, then you know that at least 2/3 of the other nodes will want to commit the same block. Then you're okay, so I commit, I write it, right? So it's basically multiple rounds of the prepare and commit cycles.
Key thing you want to remember about consensus, and anytime you come across a consensus and you want to ask about a consensus, the very first thing you want to understand about that consensus is it leaderless or leader? Because every consensus breaks down into those two categories. And this is where the fight is. Leaderless and leader. The leaders take time. That's the bottleneck. Okay? Leaderless is the ones that can fly through because there's no period of election of a leader. Okay? They're a much more complicated algorithm, but the ones that are prevalent today are the leader-oriented algorithms, and there's like tons of them, and in the academic area, that's where they break down to, and that's what they're trying to come up with. For instance, out of Australia, there's one that is a Byzantine fault tolerant, but it's leaderless, right? You got to go read the paper to figure it out. But that effectively gives it the ability to pump through 200,000 transactions a second, compared to Bitcoin's, what?
7.
7?
Okay.
Ethereum's 40 a second or whatever it is, but you get it, right? But it's not commercial yet, and it's just we don't know what they're trying to do with it. There's other areas that are looking at that you want to be aware of in this, which are called graphs, right? DAGs.
DAG?
The DAG, directed as acyclic graphs, right? The most prevalent today is called hash graph. You should know that name. Okay, it's patented, and it effectively is a consensus model that is totally scalable, and it says that it'll do 100,000 more, and it's like in its own league. But then there's others that are following it, and those are all chasing. Again, it's all about throughput. So that goes back to that gentleman's question about big data. What blocks it today is consensus. Consensus is the bottleneck and the area of focus as to how do we make these things to compete with today's transaction systems. Because if we can't get the speed up, they're not going to compete. They're going to be regulated to batch or some other back-end slow process.
I have a little bit of confusion, which says that because that leader is faster and leader is slower, is what it's supposed to say?
A leader is slower because you have to elect a leader.
I see, but isn't that what EOS is based on?
Who?
Versus Ethereum? EOS?
Oh, Ethereum?
Yeah, Ethereum versus EOS.
Yeah.
So I look at it as direct democracy and indirect democracy, just like you said, leader versus leaderless, right? And I thought the EOS has actually more scalability than actually Ethereum. So I was kind of confused what you just said.
Ethereum is still proof of stake.
Ethereum is still proof of work, but it's a proof of work that is different than the algorithm implemented in Bitcoin, because it was designed so that it couldn't be attacked by ASICs. In other words, the algorithm inside it was something that it changes in a manner where it's not economical to go spend $10,000 to get a chip made when the next week your 1,000 chips are defunct because the algorithm is changing on you. Well, they've come up, the geniuses have figured out a way, again, algorithmically, to write silicon to deal with their algorithm. So that's why there's problems in Ethereum land. And they want to move to proof of stake, but it's like, as you can see, they're having a lot of issues. I don't know if it's going to, I don't think it's going to survive myself. I think the momentum in our space, and now that Enterprise Ethereum Association has joined Hyperledger, right? I think that the power between those two are going to eventually squeeze out the permissionless Ethereum group and Bitcoin, and they'll stay around forever, right? Because they're a culture. But the rest of the world is going to move forward, and the financial community and those that need high throughput will be doing, I'm going to use the brain thing, we'll be doing, not blockchain, but we'll be doing the daddy of blockchain. Help me out. What's above blockchain? Oh my God, DLT. Distributive ledger. Okay? Distributive ledger is the umbrella.
I changed my title on that.
Distributive ledger is the umbrella. Blockchain is a subset. Blockchain is a subset because blockchain uses what we're talking about, consensus. A distributive ledger doesn't need consensus, it just needs to sign things. So in the financial community, the world, they threw out blockchain. They're all building it on distributive ledger technology like Quorum and others, okay? Because it's all, they say, hey, no, you're a bank, the regulator, we trust you, we can sue you. I just need your signature when you send me transactions, right? Ripple, not a blockchain. Transaction signatures, send it, baby, send it with a unique network design that facilitates the distributed sharing of that data, right? But effectively, that's it. So at the end of the day, it's going to be like that, right? Unless there's some miracle breakthrough algorithmically or silicon-wise that allows you to do these kind of consensus algorithms at speed. So I think it will be, a gradient in use case. Right?
Yeah. So the industry actually, the other day I read a report from Forster. People are more and more intend to use distributed ledger instead of blockchain. There are many reasons, right? One of the major reasons is just what Mark just said, right? Distributed ledger is distributed data system. It doesn't have to be written as a chain, as a blockchain. Blockchain is just only one way of the distributed ledger. So DAG, Mark also mentioned that. If you don't have to, put all the transactions into block and then write the block and chain it together. If you write a hash tree, that's the same distributed ledger implementation, and that's much faster.
Hash tree?
Yeah, it's a hash tree, right? So I think the article I remember I read probably about a year ago by this company, IOTA, right? IOTA.
Yeah,
right?
right.
They are probably one of the first ones to use that, right? inside
Yeah,
the
and
chain.
it doesn't work.
Mhm. Is that company still?
And Forces, Schneider actually signed on with them, the world's largest electronic supplier, signed on with them, but here's the thing. Every single manufacturer has to change basically inside the firmware, hardware. I mean, it's that rudimentary. It's like you have to change, it's like everything from the way you do things today. Right? So it's like all the standards your whole system's built on, throw that out if you want our system. So their play is, we're so great that everyone's going to adapt to us. Okay? Go for it. I don't think so. I know people, they don't like to change. The only way they do change in industry is if they get regulated to change. Or there's a 10x reason to change. Right?
I almost bought their coin.
Why did TIPCO change? Why did TIPCO change and go to blockchain? Well, somebody up in the CFO's office added up those charts and looked at all those Ernst & Young projections and said, wow, 2040, $3.2 trillion blockchain. We need to get in on that.
Okay, let's just finish that one, right? So we get, I'm time short, so I probably just display
We got till 8:30.
Yeah. You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, we got the room till 9, so.
Okay.
I've been doing this so long,
That's okay.
I sandbag a little bit.
Thank you, yes.
You have time for a question?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can
I guess-
discuss some
I
questions.
guess, just very broadly, I mean, I've lived in technology all my life. I guess one of the questions I have in general about this whole thing is this interesting because, this whole blockchain thing, is it interesting because it's for manufacturing or for the incumbents, let's just say, because it's a better technology? Is that kind of what it's all about, or does it actually change? I mean, does it make the rich richer, and these guys can ship things around faster, and
Yeah, from our perspective, right, we just think this technology is a complementary. Right? You cannot really replace all the current technology, and it has its benefits, right, for a lot of applications, but it's not one size fits all, right? Your traditional technology is still there.
Technology that is better than last generations, and there'll be another thing in whatever 20 years.
From distributed data system, right? This has advantages because it has a lot of things embedded or already implemented for you in the platform, right? So you don't have to deal with that yourself.
Okay, that's what I want to understand.
Is Mark, does you agree?
Oh, no, I do agree. I mean, the changes are going to be subtle. I can tell you right now, even here, I know of large entities that are in the manufacturing space that are utilizing blockchain and AI to, they think it's totally disruptive for their industry because they're going to switch from a reactive paradigm to a proactive paradigm. So instead of waiting for things to break, they go fix it before it breaks. And the projection is a 10x because the long-term.
Why do you need blockchain for that?
Oh, because
See,
AI.
that's what I'm struggling with is use cases.
Well, AI is all about data and models and integrity.
But why do you need blockchain for that? Why can't you just?
Again, because of the integrity of the data that gets captured, it could be.
But if three partners who trust each other, why do you need?
Well, I mean, again, there's other aspects to it just from the networking side of it. So you have 5 different plants. So how do you wire up all those plants together to be in sync?
They're
right?
wired.
Huh?
They're wired today.
So,
Yeah, but how do you manage, my point is, you're missing my point. The point is about the data management of it all.
I think actually for your question, it's not as much about the performance. An individual database can perform much better at a higher rate per transaction than distributed blockchain, right? You can have distributed ledger. Where you get is the immutable ledger that is trustless. So you can have a supply chain with multiple actors, but you don't have to trust centralized place. Like if everyone in the diamond industry want to trust the Bears to be the person who holds a database for where the diamonds are growing because they're the biggest, that's probably not the best way because that's not going to manipulate it.
I'm not trying to be controversial, it's just more.
No, I think it's something like
right now, all the trade networks exist. They trust each other. Ships work just fine. Why do you need?
I don't know what networks you're talking about, because as a
Maybe not.
consultant, I mean, that's all I deal with is the breakdown of these systems. And the fact of fixing Going in, I've gone into places where they told me, if you can fix our system and save 3 seconds average on this transaction, we're gonna make $1 billion on the top line.
Efficiencies, I got that, I
Okay,
got that.
well, there
But
you
it's
go.
not a truck, it's not like, they all trust each other anyway. This is just faster, better, stronger across the same system.
Yeah, I like it. Here's the way I see it.
Which is
And I don't know how you can draw value, how you would draw value from it, or as a businessman, how they would draw value. But I haven't said this for a long time, but it was very prevalent to me. The paradigm shift for us is that we're coming from a big data era, right? And what is big data about? Why do we collect big data? What do we want it for? Why? Because we want to know something, right? What do we want to know? The state of our life, the state of affairs. We want to know state. Run the report, tell me what the state of the balance sheet is. What's the net sales today? Whatever, it's always about state. So we do big data so we can find state. Needle in a haystack or big pictures, right? But it's about state. So what the blockchain does for us is it moves us from that big data batch-oriented lag to where it's like, oh, we know what we did today, but it's not going to help us because it's tomorrow already. So we, you know what I'm saying? We're always changing. Whereas the blockchain gives us almost near real-time state of our system. And if we have cooperative players in our ecosystem that collectively work together, that means when Johnny loads a truck, Bobby in Taiwan knows about it. When the truck gets held up at a light and the computers say, uh-oh, adjust the time delivery, Billy knows about it, and Billy automatically doesn't have to do anything, just look at the light, and he sees that the temperature and the gates are adjusted. And this goes all throughout.
I think everybody understands that. What I think he's asking is actual use case.
Well, doesn't that bring you a bottom line profit somewhere?
No, actual execution is, I think, what we're asking.
Maybe,
Or
yeah.
visible form, is this being used somewhere? And how is it being used? How consensus is done? Who's motivated to do it?
So if I'm paying an SLA, right, and I get pinged because somebody in my company does something bad, and it's now costing me $1 million a minute, I'm going to end up going to court, and I better have some pretty good factual evidence. And if I can haul in an immutable ledger that says these are all the events that took place, pay me.
I'm already buying it. What I'm saying is, tell me how you're gonna do it. How you gonna do it?
Oh, well, that's what he's doing. They're already doing it. He's going to show you, right?
Can I say something?
Maybe I'm missing that point.
I think this gentleman's question is a little bit more fundamental. All of the things you described, you can envisage systems and ways of doing it with current technology, not blockchain, that would achieve the same thing, not necessarily the same efficiency. My suggestion to this gentleman is if he wants to go and find out why the blockchain is such a big deal, is go back to the original Bitcoin paper. Because Bitcoin is a currency on top of a technology stack. That technology stack is the blockchain. Bitcoin could go away tomorrow, and blockchain will still revolutionize the world. And if you go back to the original paper, the reason was because there have been many types of digital cash attempted in the past. They all failed. They all failed. Bitcoin is the only attempt so far that seems to have solved all the problems: double spending, distribution, zero trust, all these things. And the blockchain, the key attributes of the blockchain were essentially an immutable record of truth that everyone can agree upon. Okay? And that's why we couldn't double spend, for example. You could see if someone spent the truth there before. So if you want to go back and see why it's such a fundamental thing, and so far so good, it's actually being experimented upon about just under 10
That
years.
use case, I get. I've read Satoshi's, peer-to-peer,
But I'm
decentralized.
saying it solved a bunch of problems that have never been solved before. And that's why it's
I get it.
So
That's
so it's a cheaper, more efficient way to have one version of the truth we can all agree upon. And that's why it's so popular now, because we can build these systems, using existing technology and different way of doing things. But the blockchain, because of its character, immutable records.
Yeah, but you say mutable, and again, I'm not trying to be, but that's not what this gentleman has said. said, there's nothing you said that is immutable. That's permissioned, blah, blah, blah.
No,
It is
the whole
immutable.
point is-
Of course it's
I'm just
immutable.
saying it's not really immutable.
When you say one version of the truth, it
That's
doesn't
not
matter
really-
the truth, it
that's-
doesn't change. Because you can go back and change something,
Just be careful how we use the word immutable. Immutable is Bitcoin. Because it's
No, no.
decentralized.
No, it's not. You're wrong.
Blockchain are all
Immutability comes in the form of taking a private key and signing
Okay,
something.
so hold up, so you're saying Bitcoin is not an example of immutable?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
One of the defining characteristics
All
of
crypto-
blockchain
all-
is the immutability.
Immutability is not unique to Bitcoin or any blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Immutability comes as
As a result.
a result of applying certain cryptography
I
protocols.
agree.
Okay?
I agree.
So, we had immutability.
I'm just,
Yeah.
okay.
For instance, the courts have upheld electronic signatures as being immutable evidence that you signed. Right,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, I actually have a slides about, because I got asked the question as well. People were saying, okay, I got my existing system, everything's working. Why do I use blockchain? I know blockchain has all these benefits. How can I convince my manager, to use blockchain, right? So I basically have a slide that actually summarized a few things in the next one. Just those things, you have to weigh the benefit versus the effort. You already have a system. Do you want to change it? I have these benefits. You just have to weigh trade-off, to see if it's worth it. We can probably talk a little bit more on that slides. So this slide is basically saying you can roughly divide the manufacturing process into 3 different phases. One is pre-production. That's when you do the product design and inventing it. And second phase is just doing the real production, making it. And then the production is just distributing it. On all 3 phases, you can find cases that blockchain could bring value. Right? So I don't go to the details anymore here. And I want to show you one of these slides. I just skip all these. Doesn't really matter. So, oops. Yeah, this is actually coming from an industrial internet consortium. They basically draw this 3-tiered architecture about if for the manufacturing process is of course one of the examples, right? You basically have IIoT on the left. You have all these IIoT devices that collects data through a edge gateway that sends the data over to this platform tier, where you have machine learning and data analytics to collect the data, find the anomaly, find the interesting events, and then send those interesting events or summary events over to the enterprise tier. Those places would be just like your brain, right? So if you think about this system, this is a digesting system. Try to get all the information, all the raw data coming in, and extract the useful information out, right? And the useful information goes into your brain, so your brain can make a decision. You can have decision-making rules and dashboards that helping people to visualize the data, and then you make business decisions and feedback, right? So control flows then come back all the way to control the IoT devices, right? So that's a very ideal world. Probably the future someday will go into that, right? So with this kind of 3-tiered architecture, you can see this is eyeballing your sensor, right? You're sensing all the data. And these data, they call it 3V, right? It's a big volume, big velocity, right? As you just asked about it, and big variations, because you have so many different type of IoT devices. They all send out different data, different format. Right? How can you handle that 3 big V in this data? So it will be very hard to put those into a current blockchain architecture. You will have to have a different type of distributed ledger more like the DAG system instead of the chain system, right, to put into this layer. So most logically with the current available blockchain, you probably just put that one into a messaging here, and that goes through here and you crunch the data, the raw data, and only publish your interesting events, say anomalies or summary or averages. Only those data goes into the blockchain, and then that can share across multiple members. Right? So you can see the current blockchain probably in this layer, from here to here, it's more usable. And manufacturing, we talked about this. So this is a slide I actually try to say, okay, if I want to convince my manager, why I would want my manager to try blockchain, right? These are a few points I would make. Well, blockchain uses standard internet protocol for communication. That's very basic, right? So you don't really need proprietary value-added network to handle the B2B processes. And it's immutable, append-only data, right? Once the data gets put on the chain, and that's not changed. So it can support the provenance of the data. And in the typical B2B application, if you worked with those, you know that people have to invent these mechanisms, proprietary mechanisms to do the non-repudiation, right? To prove to my partner, I got this data, this is true, right? But with blockchain, you don't really need proprietary non-repudiation processes because it's already proven, right? The third one is smart contract. So when things go wrong, you got bad data, how can you reconcile between partners, right? I got a part of data here, and you said you didn't receive it. Something's wrong, message may be lost, or something changed, right? So how can you reconcile, when that happens? With blockchain, you have a smart contract on the chain, that executes by multiple parties, and the same contract can execute it. If it's a bad transaction coming in, it's already filtered out, rejected. It never gets onto the chain, right? So you don't really have those manual reconciliation processes. Availability, it's automatically distributed, and everybody stores the same data. It's replicated, right? You don't really need to worry about, am my data safe, right? If you lose the node, the data is still there, right? It's in the same network, everybody has the same data, right? So it's really reliable, availability is high. And you automatically have an audit trail. Even though I may trust my partner or may, I theoretically trust them, but I don't really trust them, right? So it's kind of a semi-trusted network. And even with that, we have the same audit trail, right? What beats that, right? So that would, if you have the system together in there implemented, you don't have to worry about a lot of things that's happening in the current world. And data security, that's another thing that these manufacturers, they all worry about it. I don't want to share data. Okay, you have a blockchain that shares data with everybody, right? I don't really want to share data publicly. I only want to share certain data with my dedicated partners. How do you do that, right? The blockchain actually supports that. Right? You have 3 different ways to keep your data secure. You can partition your network. So you allow only your specific partners join some part of the network. So that way you only share the data with them. Or you can encrypt the data. So when you put the data on the chain, you encrypt it first. Right? But it doesn't always work. Some regulations even reject that. Even encrypted data you can put on the chain because people always can attack it. Right? If they can somehow get your key, they can decrypt it. Or the most secure one is put a hash on. Don't even put any data onto the chain, but you want to put the hash of the data onto the chain so you can get provenance. You can prove that data happened. Right? All your real data actually is stored privately off the chain. So there's different ways to handle those kind of situations, and also privacy. Right? So if you don't want to expose your identity to everybody, you can always just to use the zero knowledge proof mechanism to expose only the things you want to expose about yourself. And also there's blockchain implementation to do the self-sovereign identity. It's basically a distributed identity system. So you don't have to put your identity in a central place that people may break in. So all these things people could consider if you want to convince your manager, I got a good initiative to do the blockchain. Why I need to do it? What's the benefit of it? Right? There may be more. Right? This is just what I can think of to convince my manager.
Does blockchain have a lifespan, or what do you do when, because you don't do updates to it. Once it goes out there, it's running, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do when you want to change it?
If you want
Bring
to
it in,
expire, right? Yeah.
take out the data and do another one? Or how do you?
Blockchain itself, right? You cannot change it. Right? So,
Maybe
yeah.
you can truncate it, so after a time, so certain data, manufacturing data from 20 years ago with machines you no longer have in the factory floor,
Right.
you can truncate it, cut it off,
And then store it.
You take it off chain.
Well, you don't store it because it's out in the.
No, but you could archive it. But then the chain has been shortened, so the data could be more compacted effectively by truncating stuff. One question I have for you on the self-sovereign identity for permissioned and permissionless blockchains. By definition, if you have a permissioned blockchain, you have a centralized identity issuer. Because that's the whole point.
You do.
And so how can that be self-sovereign if in the permissionless case where anyone can create a public-private key pair, join the blockchain or whatever permissionless one you want, that's self-solving because I generate it myself. I can do it through tossing coins if need be. But you can't be self-sovereign if you're a permissioned one by definition.
Right. This one is basically a separate service. I mean, it's currently, of course. See, like Fabric right now, you don't use this kind of service, right? You have to have the identity register, right? But yeah,
Well, they're moving to that. The self-sovereign identity on Indy and moving into all the projects, and it's based upon you create your key, and then you have to start establishing relationships, right?
Okay.
Which then compound and aggregate to the strength and integrity of that key, right? So they see in the vision one key would be, I got a key from my bank, I got a key from the license bureau, or no, I'm sorry, not a key, but the relationship. So in that sovereign identity world, the key and the relationship, that relationship itself
strengthens with the network that you
Yes.
connect to you.
Yeah. So like your academic credentials, all of that, right? That's where the graph would come in, right? Because it would start with you, and you would, when we would want to, however I would want to traverse your graph would be contextual. Because if I'm a bank, I'm going to look for other things. If I want to date you, I'm going to look at other things.
An analogy would be your reputation on eBay. The more transactions you've done,
Absolutely. All we do is reinvent what we already have. Just improve. You're right. You're absolutely right. But this is because of the immutability. We can't forge, and we can't go hire an army of foreigners to sit around and create good reviews for us. Okay?
Yeah, so the last bullet is basically just thinking about a system like Hyperledger Indy, because this provides the way to do the...
Which is spot on. That is the biggest link and the biggest weakness, and unfortunately, that's the area that they just sort of carried along because it has a can of worms, and they just say, oh, we're just going to do X509 all over again. And you and I agree that's right, and they do too, but they have to like march.
Yeah, this is just your question right there, immutable records, right? So data immutable, how does handle mistakes? If the data is wrong, it's in there, right? So these things, there are some considerations and challenges. That's why a lot of people are suspicious, when you say doing the blockchain and use blockchain to solve all the problems, right? So there's a lot of considerations that go into that. If you write a blockchain implementation, so the challenges and consideration for the platform perspective, it's not that the blockchain cannot do these, right? It's just in your design, when you do the implementation, you have to consider these things, right? Challenges about smart contract. The thing is here, right? Lack of standard for smart contract. Different blockchain use different ways of writing smart contract, right? And in the Fabric perspective, it's called chain code, right? So you have to write it according to their stuff. How do you handle that? That's why TIPCO has this tool, is trying to solve this kind of problem, some of these problems. And another challenge about is blockchain is not everything. When you write your application, you have to have other components to work with it, right? So that's why you have to ask these questions. How can I get the data in and out of blockchain, right? If you want blockchain to hold your distributed data, how do you get the data? How do I extend smart contract for me, so special? How do I respond to events from the ledger? How do I analyze the data? Right now, if you look at all these blockchain implementations, the data get onto the chain. How do I handle it? How do I analyze it? Right, there's not much in there. So you just have to do yourself. How can I provide control, management, right? Control people who can access it. So that comes in this slides that from typical perspective, we think you would have a complete solution. You would have to have all these components. Down there, you have a distributed ledger system, and this distributed ledger would expose some of their APIs depending on which platform you choose. Say Hyperledger would have its own SDK. It supports Golang, Java, JavaScript, right? And for Ethereum, they have this JSON RPC calls that you can access. So there's an access layer, and above that, you have, using the APIs, you can write smart contract and deploy over there. And over there, most likely you will have a proxy layer to hide all these details about how you access a particular blockchain, right? Because today you may use Hyperledger Fabric, and tomorrow you may choose a different one, right? You may use Sawtooth, or you may use other blockchain technologies for this layer. But how can you share that details from your application, right? So it's better to have a proxy layer that hides all those details and expose those maybe into microservices. So you can write your application just according to the microservices that puts the data or queries data from the blockchain, right? And on the data layer, you will need some data handler to collect the data from the blockchain, and then you can feed into your data analytics and to get the real useful information to support the decision making. Right? So that's why the all stack actually, the upper stacks should be independent of your blockchain technology.
When you say analytics,
This one?
yeah, up there, you mean the analytics that make use of the information in the blockchain? Or?
Yeah, basically you look into what's the data in there, and you do your streaming analytics, or you extract the properties, you detect alerts, right? For the manufacturing, you maybe say, okay, when this event happens, that product must be the counterfeit. So you can detect those things, right? So you feed into a streaming analytics and machine learning components to learn about the data. This is the typical stack that upper stacks typically would have these tools that does that. So what my demo is going to be is just this one. The Dovetail project we have, it's still in the research time, and we're going to open source that project so everybody can use, and people can join us and co-develop it and make it better. So what this Dovetail project is basically have a layer that, a visual modeling layer, so you can actually visualize your smart contract. And we are going to plan to use this layer to support multiple different blockchain tech framework. So if you switch out, hopefully the model, the smart contract level will not change.
Is anybody using contract on blockchain now?
I think everybody does, yeah. So if you write, it's a different name, right? For Ethereum, I don't know what it's called. It's use Solidity. And for the fabric, you just chain code, right? So you have to have that.
But those are limited, small approval type contracts. I'm thinking more real estate related, legal, large.
No, we're not there yet.
No?
No, there's some groups that are working on that, at the big sixes, that are defining the whole vocabulary.
Yeah, because that changes by state.
There's an army of lawyers
All
on
kinds
it.
of things,
Yeah.
but it's just a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
I'm
it
wondering
could be,
if
yeah.
anybody trusts it yet.
Yeah, so right now it's very simple, right? So, yeah, I heard people even try to define some generic language for that, programming
It's
language.
a misnomer, because to a programmer, it might mean like a programming contract, but to someone outside, a contract means like a binding agreement.
Yeah. Well, 40 pages versus.
But the reality
3 or 4.
is, it's just a program.
Right.
Software, it's code.
Yeah.
Right.
The joke is they're neither smart nor contracts. in the sense that,
It's data.
contract, they haven't actually been legally challenged. There's no jurisprudence of history of cases and precedent yet for contracts. So how can you enforce them? Imagine showing chain code to a judge. Can you imagine that? Versus a written contract.
Yeah.
It's
Some
a
people-
judge, on line 42, you'll find the if statement on which this all happens.
Yeah.
There's no,
I think what the code in Coda R3 does is, okay, you have a code in there, right? But from the code, it actually generates a PDF file. And that's
you want basically, write the chain code and it's to actually write a paper contract.
Yeah.
Which is the one that you would litigate in court, but it's reflective
Right.
of the logic of the.
right.
You will see chain
away from that.
You will see chain code in the courts any day, probably starting next year.
It's taken
But it will
years.
come out of the civil cases and fraud and auditors.
Yeah, but the other thing too is you're going to need at least like 10 years of case law before it becomes like established, acceptable.
Not in the auditing world. It's already established in the auditing world.
Just in order, I know.
The auditors and the auditing community have already pretty much stamped it. They've already given advice, and they're telling you how to classify assets, and they're already training auditors how to use the blockchain and giving them a level of expectation.
I'm more concerned about the judges than
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be it'll be a process, but what I'm saying is it won't be some lawyer up there doing it. I mean, obviously, they'll be arguing the case, but it will be the auditors. And with TIPCO's tools,
you're going to have to wait.
you might be
You're going to have to wait for a generation of lawyers to die.
It's possible.
if you have a demo or something.
I just did a very small demo. I just do it, just keep it short.
I know you want to do our
Yeah.
drawing.
Special court
It's,
judges.
It wasn't hard to find.
Yeah.
E30, right? So,
Yeah.
I got something
like-
for this.
okay.
Wrap up.
Okay, I'm wrap up.
You already did, you signed up for the raffle, okay?
So,
We're going to close on down.
okay, so I just want to show you a very, very simple demo about the dovetail, right? So what the dovetail is, the demo I'm going to show you is basically we have this open source project already. It's called Flowgo. I show you how the Flowgo look like. From there, we just did the two model. One model goes to the Raspberry Pi that shows you how you control the IoT devices. And another model that goes to the smart contract that deployed to the Hyperledger fabric. And another model goes to just become a microservice. So the microservice would receive an event that would put the data onto the blockchain. And if the data it gets over some threshold, it'll call the Raspberry Pi to turn on that little light. So that's only this model. So I just want to show you that with Flowgo, this UI, we can actually visualize these models for microservice and for blockchain and for IoT.
Cool.
Okay? So these are the things that's normal, right? So I don't have to talk about it. We have meetups, everywhere. So that's a typical meetup groups. And we have a link. So if you want to view how our CTO is present this, there's an upper link right there, that points to the CTO's presentation. So it's a little different from mine, but all my slides is based on his. So you can watch he talk.
You send me that slide, I can make sure everybody in the group gets up.
Yeah, so everybody that registered,
Okay, okay.
Erin will just send it to you.
Good, good.
Mhm. Okay, so let me see. First of all, let me show you the here is here's how these models look like. This is a Flowgo, right? So it's a UI, and what I'm showing you is a model I'm going to run on the Raspberry Pi, right? So in the Raspberry Pi, it's basically a microservice that runs on that Raspberry Pi over there, that little thing here, okay? So it first just receives a HTTP request. You give it a port, open the port in there. It just runs a GET. The GET would receive a message called light state. Basically, lights on or off, right? So if it says lights on, it'll call. Yeah, if it says, so there's a condition, if condition, right? If condition says, if this flows state equals to 1, that means it's turn it on. So it'll call the Raspberry Pi's command, turn the lights on, which is basically calling a method called get set state. And in set state's a pin number. Set state's pin number is 23, which is the power line that I connected to, right? The 23 pin. And turn that guy's state to high. That means lights that light. So. And if else, the other block, I just turn it off. So it's the same thing, set state, pin number 23, and state low, okay? So that's how simple it is, You can put branches and put tiles in there, and you can add, if you add more tiles, you can have functions that you can call in here, right? And from the Lambda functions, you can even call Lambda function to AWS, so that it can turn on to your Echo devices. Not Echo, Alexa, yeah. So these kind of things, it's a visual modeling tool. And if I want, this is one of my model. The other model is my simple alert service. That's a microservice in there that triggers everything. So in there, I receive HTTP request and call a blockchain. So that writes data into the blockchain, which is also a web service call. And then, depends on the condition, I can turn on the light. That basically calls the microservice on the Raspberry Pi or off. Okay? So let me show you just run it one time. I already set it all up. Where is it? Here. So I just quickly run this thing. So first, I have this microservice call. I can directly turn on that light. So if I say send, that turns on the light, right? If I say turn it off, that turns it off, okay? Now, if I do the blockchain, basically this one is just calling my web service, my microservice. So with this microservice, I basically telling this, okay, I'm getting an audit, and the value 1,000, right? And I already set my threshold. If it's 1,000, that means I need to turn on the light, the alert. So if I send this guy, the light should turn on. It takes a while. It actually shows you that I wrote this thing into the blockchain. So this actually is a blockchain reply that says, I got 1,000, but the blockchain generated, my smart contract generated this hash code and transaction IDs and stuff, right? So it tells me the user transaction ID now it's alert 1,000. Actually, I can query that from the blockchain. Okay? So now let me send another one that turn it off. So this guy just says, okay, my value is 10. The last digit of it is 10. That is below 1,000. That will write the data onto the blockchain and also turn off that guy. Okay? Lights is off, and I got the alert 10, right? So now I can show you that I can query the blockchain to see that those two records are actually stored on the blockchain. So that's the one. That is basically telling you that I'm querying those two records, and you actually got two records back. One is the 1,000 that I sent first to turn on the light. 10 is the one I turn off the light. So this one is just shows you that the Dovetail project actually tried to give you a modeling environment that you can model different situations, IoT.
Highly needed,
Yeah.
highly needed, because Composer was very popular, but it fell short. This looks very, very, very appealing. I can't wait till it's open source.
Yeah.
I'm sure people will love it.
Yeah, we hope that we get more people joining us and try to make it better. So if you've worked with typical BW before, anybody worked with business works? You did, yeah. So this will be similar, but it's better. It's actually on the web browser.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to, and it can run in the cloud. You don't really need to download anything.
It's nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So this is for the Southwest.
We don't have many tickets here.
I know.
Anybody wants to put it in there?
These tickets?
Oh, no, you all have it.
Oh, you
guys
already
have
have
it there, Doc. Yeah, no, that's it.
Has the
So-
You wrote it,
Okay, so this is
you
the
made
first
it.
one for the
Yeah.
ticket to the event.
You already did it, yeah, good.
So it's 477.
That's me.
Awesome. So-
I get up all these technology conferences and I win like 80% of them. I broke the phones. I was all done.
Where's his name? If you want to take that email down, you just email him tomorrow. He'll send you the ticket.
Okay, and my name is Mike Duffy, so you can email him too. That's awesome.
We should get Sigurd, it's going on blockchain. He's immutable.
Did you see? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, ready? And this is for the drum. Did you want to pick it? Oh, you can't pick.
I was going to do the help after actually.
470.
Oh.
Oh my God, they're next to each other. Oh, God. If you send for a ticket, you'll have to ask him.
I want to recount.
Check their tickets.
I can make me something here.
I had one away.
Oh, so close.
Yes.
Yeah,
Have an announcement?
I know Mark pretty well. Just real quick, I wanted to announce an open source project. My name is Mike Duffy. I'm currently a GIS application architect for a major player in the electric grid. And I've been working on applications since the early days of the internet. For the last 4 years, I've been trying to wrap my brain around the whole blockchain distributed ledger technology space. And we've created an open source demonstration project that is fully functional for distributed ledger technology. It's based on JSON data structures. It's very elegant. It uses digital credentials instead of consensus mechanisms. It just focuses on a singular distributed ledger, not a complete blockchain. If you go to our website, trustnexus.io, there's a lot of interesting information there. There's an email contact page there too. If you send me an email, I will answer your questions.
All right, Mike, thank you. All right, everyone, it was awesome having you here. Thank you for coming out. I know the weather is so inclement and the traffic doesn't help, but it's been great having you for
Oh, you're way advanced than I am.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for coming. I hope you
Oh, because you had real world experience. You may, I'm gonna see you, I'm gonna go to my hotel, I'll see you in the morning. Okay.
Do you need, I'm calling that.
No, I'm good.
You
I'm
walk?
good. Yep, I'm good.
Well, I can ask you to just drop.
No, I'm good.
It's cold.
Yeah, I'm good, I will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, really?
Okay?
Okay, sure.
You good? Yeah, I'll let you see that. You'll see that and say, who's this? What I said. Now look at this, he's like, this is from Nelson. I should accept this picture.
I'd like to boast that
I just want to say thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you very much.
And I have, even though like the Forrester report came out this week, it's predicting a blockchain winter, and there's been some other negative stuff that's come out in the last couple of weeks, I still think long-term, this technology is transformative. Yeah, there's definitely something to the foundation here, and once people really get it and they get practical applications, it's transformative. But I have Aaron's email address, and I got yours from the.
Right, and if you join the TIBCO community, they do a lot of stuff in Austin. I don't, but there's other workshops and stuff like that. Not around blockchain. I don't know if you're interested in like analytics or anything or
My
integration.
company uses. We spend lots of money with TIBCO.
Oh, then you should definitely. Do you belong to our community?
I don't personally, but I have colleagues who do.
Okay, because they're big down here. They do a lot of stuff on Spotfire.
TIBCO's huge for us.
Oh, and you just heard the announcement about Spotfire X?
Yeah, like I said, for my part, it's not. I don't get involved in the intercommunication part of it,
Okay.
but I do know that we have a lot of people who do TIBCO in the company that I'm in right now during my day job.
During daytime, right? Yeah, so if you ever, we are quite a bit in this area, in the Texas area, Austin, Dallas, and Houston. So if you join the community, we have a group in each of those areas. And I know that, have you heard of the Lighthouse, Blockchain Lighthouse, and some other? So they're an organization down here, and I believe our CTO Nelson, who you may reports into, will be here. He's either going to be here in January, February, presenting to that group.
Blockchain Lighthouse?
Yeah, I believe it's named it, but if you go to TIBCO Austin Meetup, join that group, because I'll post it on that group, and he'll be here.
Pretty good deal. Thanks, man. Have a good trip back to San Francisco. I was there in May. I froze.
Really? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm freezing the air.
It's all around the platform that will be marked on the web, right? But it would be like something like it came out of like a 4 or much more sophisticated for what I thought, because they're going down the path where it's heavy driven by AI influence, and not AI, but AI in the sense of but you can have a million decisions in order to define and decide a particular, if a clause is correct, right? Yeah, and then how do you have to, then you realize that you have to understand sort of changing, which is even more difficult. the words. Because some words you just can't modify, they're there, but they're baking in the subjectivity into it as well, so that, because they realize it will be, if it's purely algorithmic, it'll fail, right? Because the nature of law is not black and white. And you don't want a black and white box, because you know bad decisions, right? So you're gonna have to, look, it's like an 80-20. We need an 80% right, we deal with the other 20. And it's also about, they're also now, they're not looking at it holistically or horizontally, they look at it vertically. They take their domain as bankers, underwriters, investment bankers. And they look at it and they say, what are the most popular generic contracts that we do? Let's identify it. Oh, we've identified 100. Let's take the 10, top 10, and let's go build a system. Right, and so obviously, thank you.
A few years ago, the concept came to me when I first heard about it, because I said, is it ready yet? But it's all this. Time to start writing to it and doing your testing and developing. Because otherwise, that's all the benefits of it.
So he's like, it's like number 6 in the country in history. Academic, things. He had an extremely difficult time with that.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure, thank you. Very good, great in depth. And,
Thanks for explaining all these, how you explain all these concepts.
Oh, well, I try to interject, I don't want to, vary, but it seems to help to interject, and then I, just sort of give you a break for a minute and get some thoughts, and make it a little bit more, a little chaos. A little chaos.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay.
So you know, hey, get on LinkedIn with me.
Oh, yeah, I will. Yeah, okay.
What do they do with all this pizza now?
They're not taking it home to have a party?
Somebody should.
Yeah, they will. If you want to grab a box and go, or you want to take some of these and help yourself.
What is it? What are these? I saw
They're
these
like
there.
a little, sausage.
Pizza rolls? Oh, that's, you know what, I will take one of these. Oh, all right. You gonna take one?
No,
too?
I'm not.
No?
Hell. I'll be, my constitution won't go down too well at all. So, you take that easy.
I hear ya.
What's your name?
Frank.
Frank?
Frank Blanco, Mark. Yeah, I'll send you a LinkedIn
Yeah.
invite as well. I've been, I was telling Ying,
Yeah.
Ying,
You mean?
I was telling him, that 2 years ago when I heard about this thing, I started, I had done a lot of work in real estate and done a lot of portfolio buying, selling, and then the actual real estate, and then rehabbing, just everything. And holy shit, you talk about disrupting a vertical. I mean,
Yeah.
attorneys, title companies.
In your space, in your domain.
Well, that's not what I haven't done that in
You
years.
see it there?
No, because I've also been in technology. I did
Oh, okay.
that kind of like as fun, and actually when I was younger I did it.
Yeah.
And so, but I saw the technology and I'm like, God, this is perfect for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've just been waiting for it to be able to handle it. But I think even though it's not ready yet,
Yeah.
you've got to start developing and testing
Yeah.
now because it's around.
Well, I think you're, I do. I've had that use case from day one. And I actually
I'm
have
sure a bunch of
designs
people-
on it, but
Yeah.
it's mothballed, because there's so many use cases.
Oh, exactly, everything you.
But I agree with you, you know, tackle it, because I personally, I don't know if they're gonna survive what they're doing, from my personal experience, because it just, to me, seems like one of those
Who's
projects.
they? Is it another real estate or
No, no,
financial
no,
guys?
it's the smart contracts that we were talking about.
Yeah,
Because it's just like, it's like, for me, I find success the way the Marines eat elephants, right? One bite at a time. These guys are trying to take the whole circus,
yeah.
right?
And that's a big challenge that I keep pulling back from, and especially knowing that this is not ready. I keep saying, I can see the whole thing, but I can't go after the whole
Yeah.
thing. I've got to take a piece of it, and the one that's
Yeah.
the lowest hanging fruit,
Exactly.
the one that I can get the win, the one that I can,
Right.
prove myself.
Exactly.
Same thing. I mean, I don't understand the financial area of it. I understand loans.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's loan
But-
based on?
But these guys do a lot more.
Financials, right?
Right.
So what's
Yeah.
financials based on? Trust? Right? New building, all that, like I said, the numbers you're looking at. So that's the focus of, for me right now, is companies is putting financials on blockchain, creating a financial marketplace where your asset and your holdings are your financials, and you monetize it. And then you create requests and you can create offers. So that can be on either side. So you can publish anonymously the ratios, and then lenders can query and find ratio sets that match the profile they're looking for, right? And then they can make offers, right? They can make offers, but it's not spamming you because they don't know who you are, right? You just have your little dashboard and you say, oh, I got an offer here, what is it, you know,
Yeah, maybe
Right.
you want to transition something.
or
manage your
let's say you're putting out your
portfolio.
financials, and some analyst has a way that he's looking at your financials, he's running a model on that,
Yeah.
and it's anonymous, but he said, oh, I bet you their credit costs are too high. I can save them 15% on credit costs. That adds up to $1.5 million a year. You think they'll be interested?
Yeah.
Let me create an offer. Boom. Hey, your financials fit this profile. You could earn an extra $1.5 million a year in savings.
Holy cow.
Hey,
I
I
never
mean-
thought of putting out your financial out there anonymously. I always
Yeah.
thought securing.
Or
it,
parts of
like
the
your-
financial. It's
Yeah,
like, hey,
and you want
I'm
to.
gonna take
send it
this
out,
quarter's
yeah.
receivables
Yeah.
and get some money.
Yeah, exactly. Do that interim,
Right?
whatever. Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
it's like, it's
Put it out to
crazy.
bid.
Yeah, and you can pull, so you can create pool offers, so now, because it's all about, for me, we're targeting small business, not big guys,
That's the
right?
big.
Yeah, because they're left out there in the cold,
And
They
there's
can't get
thousands
money.
and thousands of them.
and there's good ones, there's
Yeah.
bad ones and there's good
Yeah.
ones. And with a blockchain where we can capture after transaction later, so imagine you're a small businessman, you got 8 guys working for you, right? And you're using our app, and every time they go to buy or sell, right, it's like, I don't know if they were understanding what I'm talking about, state. I guess they don't deal with it, they don't have to know anything. But if you're in my world, I need to know things now, right? And if I'm looking at transactions and flows in businesses, if I can know that granularity, and then I can write an algorithm that says, whoa, no, I only want, like for instance, on Sunday, we never spend more than $100. It's just my predicament. Daddy did it, Grandpa did it. We're not just, it's the thing, right? You don't spend more than $100 on Sunday.
Yeah, because it's so easy to go out there and visit.
Yeah, I know.
And you're doing it on Saturday too.
Yeah, it's but you teach us, and that's like, or like, why is he buying paper in this particular pattern? That's a flat,
Yeah.
right? He ain't buying paper at all. He's going out, right, and he's fraudulently somebody getting a receipt. You know, there's ways, right? But you can follow them.
Yeah,
I don't have to wait till in the quarter, auditors have to come in and find all that.
Yeah.
You can get it in real time. And you can bring up an evidence where, like, let's say you're gonna throw a festival, right? So now,
Everybody's got
got the app,
transparency and
and everybody's working.
getting into it,
Yeah,
getting
so
to.
not only is it at a financial level, of the transaction flow, but it's at a business level. So it's like, if Bobby needs to get that rack put up, oh, we can't get the rack because of truck. Oh, instead of having to do the old, oh, who's in charge of that? Billy, where's Billy? Oh, he's over there, go find him and ask him. You gotta go hunt down Billy, Billy's gotta come back, get the keys, move the truck.
Yeah,
We just lost a half hour, and that's a ripple effect.
yeah.
Now it's like the band's gonna be 15 minutes late going on stage, and the crowd's going crazy, it's going down the hill.
So unfortunately, we need to
Alright.
shut down this room.
All
Thanks
right.
for coming, thanks for.
All right. Yeah, our pleasure, man, enjoy.
Thanks for the pizza.
Yeah, have fun.
Sure.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
take care.
What's your name? You're new.
I'm Brian, I am new.
Brian? Mark.
Nice to meet you, Marcus. See you around.
All right, next month.
Okay.
All right,
Frank.
here we go.
Su casa? Ah. I wanna take like one box for powder meat.
Oh.
Okay. Pepperoni?
Oh, tomato.
Sí. Gracias. Para you. Para mí? Sí. Gracias. Good. Bueno.
that,